But that shift has, I've slowly watched it. And I gave speeches in 2015, 16, 17, 18. And when I was giving the speeches, I said, when it swings from left to right, no one's going to stop it. You're not going to be able to stop it because it has to happen. That this has to happen. And the only way it can happen is when the population are educated and understand what's happening. So
yeah, but all those names you said are not in UK. Who in UK is a big supporter that's now saying we got to get to the bottom of this with influence?
Not with me. So many of the politicians now, the same politicians, whether it be Nigel Farage or the same politicians, even Kemi Badenoch or now the Conservative Party, all of them are now talking about this grooming issue. But none of them, they still all condemn me and attack me. They still all, any of the people, do you know what's happened is we've shifted the Overton window and made it acceptable to talk about, but many of them still say, attack me, to then feel free to discuss it. They still use me as a scapegoat. And in these figures, and this is the biggest thing for America, I was outside of courts. Once I started doing my journalism and reporting, I was outside of court in Leeds and there was 30 men on trial. And what happened in these early cases? So once they had to start addressing these gangs, they started making arrests. And when they started making arrests, it would go to court. And you might have 10 men on trial. Say, for example, there was a case in Oxford. Now, one of the girls in Oxford, they took her tongue and they nailed her tongue to a table. This was a child. This is what the rape gang's done. Another girl in this area.
This is documented.
It's all documented. All documented. And this is why I'll get onto the reason, yeah? Another girl, they got a hot iron rod and it had the letter M. And they heated it up. And they took this 11-year-old girl and they stuck it on her bum. And they scolded her like you scold an animal. And they scolded her with the letter M because she was the property of Muhammad. They took children out and doused them in petrol. This is what they took them out and doused them in petrol in the woods and said, we'll set you on fire. So then these children, they used them and they threatened their families. But this is all going on. So when the first cases started coming to light and they're going through the courts, this is getting reported. And what the men are saying to the girls, you dirty kafar, you gura, which is white girl, you filthy gura slag, everything the men were saying and the reason why they're doing it was coming out in the media. So we're getting to know. What the authorities then did is they put a blanket reporting restriction. So the first few cases, people started hearing what was going on. Then now, any of these scandals, they have a reporting restriction. So when they put a reporting restriction, for example, there was a case in Leeds, 30 of them. It was Huddersfield, one of the biggest rape gang scandals in our country's history. 30 Pakistani Muslim men. They've been raping 100 girls, torturing them, raping them for years. And now the authorities are having to deal with them. So they take them to court. So I go outside the court and I'm reporting. And they put reporting restrictions. So this is what they do now, yeah? And those reporting restrictions prevent anyone reporting on anything that's happening. And then what happens is you have a 6-week trial. And rather than hearing the news for 6 weeks about the trial, at the end of the 6 weeks, you get 1 day reporting. Because then they lift the reporting restriction, you get 30 men convicted, but you don't hear all the details. You'll have 1 day's news rather than 6 days' news. So I stood outside the court and I said, these cases are going on up and down the country. Across our country, you don't know about it, but they're happening across the country. They're being arrested, they're being tried. And under reporting restriction legislation, the judge has no power to put restrictions on information that's already in the public domain. So I made sure not to breach the reporting restriction. I said, I named the men, I named how many victims, because this was information I knew a hell of a lot more. These men have been on bail for 2 years, running the same shops, still in contact with kids. I knew so much about them, but I didn't say it. I'm outside court. The men are coming in. As they're walking in, I said, how are you feeling about your verdict? They're all making threats to me. I was very calm. The judge is at the top window. His name was Judge Marston. 2 minutes later, this is on a live stream. I'm reporting. 2 minutes later, I'm arrested. You're under arrest for a breach of the peace. I said, what do you mean breach of the peace? What have I done? They arrest me. They handcuff me. They take me to the police station. They don't even put me in the police station. They say, right, take him to court. I'm taken to court before a judge, Judge Marston. I'm not asked to plead guilty or not guilty. I get to court. I say, I get to court and say, this is the footage. I get to court and say, I want to speak to my solicitor. I have to speak to my solicitor. They don't allow me to speak to my solicitor. They put me before the judge. Within 2 hours, I got sentenced to 13 months in prison. And what the judge then did is put a reporting restriction on anyone being told I got sentenced to 30 months in prison. So I then land 2 hours later. I'm in HMP Hull. I ring my mother and my kids. I say, I'm in jail. I've just got 30 months in jail. And she's like, what? I said, I'm in prison. I've just been sentenced to 30 months in prison. I haven't done anything wrong. But they put a reporting restriction. But thanks to America, Australia, Canada, because you're not governed by their restrictions. So no one in the UK was allowed to talk about it. But then over that weekend, it started blowing up everywhere, which started a Free Tommy movement. I'm then transferred and taken. This is all to do with them still hiding this same problem. So I'm then taken and I'm put on solitary confinement in a Muslim majority prison.